This episode is brought to you by Kimball's Cookies, custom cookies for every occasion. And by Matthews Arcade, custom-built arcade games. And Kinesi Shoes, feed the flame.
Okay, we're all good. Okay, so Steve, thank you for joining us. Gene is back, and I'll tell you right now, Steve, I absolutely loved it. What it did, though, I'll tell you what, by the end, I was holding back tears just by the fact that it's like there's nothing like that nowadays. And with the internet, there's no such thing as a regional thing. But the people in Southern California had something really special with the Grand Olympic, and I don't think they even realized what they had. I got to California in 2001. And I was dying to go to the Grand Olympics. So I saw Fernando Vargas, and I believe the last boxing match ever there. And I even went to a couple wrestling cards just because I wanted to go. The magic was definitely gone from what I saw in your documentary. But just like the Mondo Ramos and Carlos Palomino, I don't even know where to begin. But I mean, it seems like that crowd took such a liking to those, the homegrown people who were the stars of that building. And I'll tell you what, quite honestly, if I can go back in time and go anywhere, I would go to one, the bigger events there. And even lastly, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I think if you had enough money to live near there and to go to the events when they had them every week, you had a great life. It just looks like I feel like I really missed something. And I don't really feel that way about many things. Like I don't look back on much. And I'll tell you what, for you to give me that feeling, you did a tremendous job.
Well, thanks very much. Yeah, it's well, first off, it was only called the Grand Olympic from 1994 to 2005. Before that, it was called the Olympic. And it was an interesting building in that it was kind of the people's building, I think, in LA. Like it was, because it gathered so many different kinds of people, with a very strong Mexican-American crowd there. It was different than other places. It also had the proximity to Hollywood. So if you talk about movies, they were shooting movies there, was sort of part of Hollywood's backlot since, basically when it opened. To Rocky and Raging Bull and $1 Million Baby, all those were shot at the Olympic. Three Stooges, Buster Keaton, so many great movies were shot at
the original A Star Is Born with Chris Christopherson was there. I believe the opening concert scene.
The main event was there. The original Manchurian Candidate was there. I mean, a million great films. And so my film, 18th and Grand, the Olympic Auditorium Story, it uses the Olympic as this sort of both the main character of the film, but also as this sort of way of telling the LA story through a building. And so that's what was so interesting to me about it, was it became a way to reflect a lot of the things going on in the city at the time.
I'll tell you, you just said it best. At the end of the movie, I feel like I watched the movie where the main character died. And we're talking about a building. I've seen movies where like people get gunned down in front of their family, and I don't get as sad as I was when I saw the end of that movie.
It's one of the sweetest things anyone said to me about the movie. It really,
I cannot be more sincere either.
It's incredibly bittersweet. I went through, and Gene obviously on a personal level went through a lot of emotions, seeing the rise and fall of the Olympic Auditorium, and myself sort of just going through the history and getting to know the people, so many of the people along the way. I don't want to give away the ending, but basically it was, there's a lot of loss, there's a lot of people who I got a chance to know who I knew if I didn't get their stories soon, there would be a good chance I wouldn't be able to tell the story of this place that I fell in love with as this sort of, I mean, people talk about falling down a rabbit hole. I really did with this story and with this movie. And fortunately, along the way, I got a chance to meet Gene Aguilera here and several other great people who became my windows into a world. Don Chargan was one of those guys who was the legendary matchmaker at the Olympic and promoter who had a history before and after the Olympic, but really I think his greatest years, and he would say that, were at the Olympic. There was a magic to the place. I mean, that's all I can say. And when I knew it was really a project, when I started interviewing people and I saw the way they would light up when I would ask them about the Olympic Auditorium, it was clear it wasn't just like, oh, and I went to Staples Center and I saw Beyonce and it was really great. I love that building because I went into the suites were incredible, and you really got a great green room. That wasn't the Olympic. I mean, Gene and I were talking about this earlier about like the crowd at the Olympic and the gangsters section and the mobsters and the gamblers and this whole rich kind of world that is no longer. And I felt like it was an important story to tell because, simply put, like you were saying, it's just like that doesn't exist anymore anywhere.
There is nothing. I had a conversation with Gene trying to compare something on the East Coast. The closest I can get to is the Blue Horizon, and it doesn't come close. And it is amazing.
And again, it's no disrespect to any other other local scene, because those were all, it was a part of an ecosystem of territorial and regional sort of club boxing and wrestling that.
And even the roller derby,
that thrived across the country. The Olympic just happened to be with its proximity to Hollywood, and I was interviewed by Eddie Muller from Turner Classic Movies. He said that there were lots of places like the Olympic, but you didn't have Eileen Eaton too, which was another difference. Like this person who took it upon herself to hold this together for so long, because when all of those scenes were dying across the country, Eileen, it was like her identity, and she was such a strong person and her ego was so big that she just didn't want to let it die. She fought to keep that place going, even when all of the other, weekly boxing cards around the country were long gone. And so, so it was a joy to make. I mean, as Gene well knows, it was hard to make the movie, and it took a lot out of me to make this movie, but it was such a rich experience. I would never trade it in. I got to meet just the most amazing people, and I had such intimate moments, for example, like just to bring up Don Chargan again, he was dying, and he had brain cancer and was dying. And it was like, he had a week or so to live, and I was in touch with his family. And I said, I don't know. I have a rough cut of the film, and if Don is able and he wants to see it, I'll drive up there. He lives in Central California. It's about a 4-hour drive from me. And I said, I'll come up there if he wants me to. If he doesn't, I don't want to, this is a family moment. It's an intimate moment. And they said, no, Don wants you to come up. So I drove up to see Don, and I had a rough cut that I played on a laptop with a headphone on his ear. He had brain surgery and radiation, and he was very weak. But we had built such a strong thing, and the Olympic meant so much to him. He just had this smile on his face as he watched the movie. And you can't replace things like that in your life. It's like, it doesn't, no matter what happens with this movie. I had that moment with Don Chargan and others, Bob Resendez, who's a friend of Gene's, who Gene so graciously introduced me to, who was, the nephew of Enrique Bolaños, and was so close to him and had all of this incredible collection and all these memories of taking the streetcar to see Bolaños to the Olympic from East LA back in the 30s and 40s. I mean, that's just, anyway, I don't want to get too gushy, but it's a real, it was a real emotional movie for me, no matter what, and there's
Enrique Bolaños right there.
Wow.
There's the great Enrique Bolaños. I mean, he was a star, and there were always Mexican American stars because they reflected, the Olympic reflected the city, the working people who built LA, not the glamorous. Yes, it had the stars, but what to me felt so interesting and why I wanted to tell the story was because it was the people's venue. It was the working people who built the city, who were the people who attended the Olympic Auditorium.
Now, I'll ask you this: as Yankee Stadium is the house that Ruth built, who built the Grand Olympic or the Olympic?
In terms of fighters, I mean, you kind of have to say Bolaños on one level. I mean, like Bolaños was the guy that gave it identity for a long. But it's an interesting question because fighters have a lifespan of their careers. So, if you go back to the 20s, you could say it was Fidel La Barba or Chalky Wright or Kid Chocolate or, one of these really early Slapsy Maxie Rosenblum, those guys were the guys in the Max Baer, they were there in the beginning. And even though Jack Dempsey never fought at the Olympic, he was there at the opening, and it was his name. It was his, image that was on the marquee, that was above the marquee. So all those fighters helped build it, and then different people sort of took ownership of it for periods of time throughout its history, from Bolaños to Aragon to Mando Ramos to Little Red Lopez to Bobby Chacon to the end. So it had too big of a history for any one person to say it's the house that a certain person built. But I mean, Eileen Eaton made it survive. I would say that in a building that was failing, that no one else could get going for the first 15 years of its existence, when it was a brand new building. When she came in and put her team together and fought for it to work, it worked for almost 40 years. Before her and after her, there were plenty of talented people who both fought there and promoted there, but she was the glue and had the grit and the fight to keep it going. So that's why I still, if you want to talk about the great promoters in boxing, you have to put her up near the top, if not at the top, of the greatest promoters who ever promoted in boxing. And that's remarkable, considering she's a woman, obviously, and that she started in the 40s. That's, in any business in the 40s, what women were running major businesses in the 1940s, let alone boxing and wrestling, and then later roller derby. I mean, it's so. In some ways, it's a building, and it's only it's the product. You can drive by it today, and the building is still there. And it's I'm not going to give up the film, but it's animated by the people who bled there, who gave their heart and souls to the place, and to those who really worked to give the audience what they deserved. Which in Eileen's case was, you never disrespect your audience. They're
How
the
about
people that-
wrestling wise? Who was the more popular wrestlers that?
Oh, well, I mean, if you go, I mean, back in the early days, there was Jim Londos, who was the original Golden Greek, and later it was John Tolos, the Golden Greek, who fought Freddie Blassie. But I mean, Blassie had a huge influence at the Olympic for a long time.
Gorgeous George. Don't forget George.
Gorgeous George exploded out of Los Angeles to the rest of the country and was obviously one of the most, he understood how to be a villain. And a lot of boxers, including, Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, were influenced by Gorgeous George. Obviously, Art Aragon, who was the 50s boxing star, was influenced by Gorgeous George. But you had so many. I mean, Mr. Moto, scientific wrestling, and so many. Andre the Giant, who came in the 70s. But I would say, if you had to say one wrestler, it would be Blassie, because Blassie he first wrestled at the Olympic in the 50s. He then was really established himself in the 60s. And he was part of the booking, he booked the talent too with Jules Strongbow. They had a really tight booking, and they developed all the storylines and all of the wrestling characters. So the Destroyer, Dick Beyer, who we interviewed, the Masked Wrestler, he wouldn't have made it without Blassie discovering him in Hawaii and then saying, let's bring him into LA, let's turn him into a villain. All of those things. So Blassie, for longevity and influence, and the fact that they ended up going and taking a show to the Coliseum, where they did 25,000 people, which at the time was a record in 1970. So I would say Blassie would be number one if I had to say any wrestler in LA history.
Good. Gene, I know you have a lot of questions.
Yeah. I just want to give a little my own take on the Olympic Auditorium.
Please.
Actually, the first time I went there was for wrestling when I was about 10 years old, about in the mid 60s. And I remember there was a thing on TV. It said if you took a bar of soap, I guess they were going to send it to the Vietnam or the soldiers. If you took a bar of soap, you can get it for free, a brand new bar of soap, of course. And we got it. Me and my uncle, we got it for free to see wrestling. And I was just the Olympic was a magical place to me, much like Disneyland was also to me at the same time as a 10-year-old kid. But then in the 70s, that's when I started going to the Olympic to see boxing. I grew up and the Main Street Gym. I grew up with Palomino, Muniz, Little Red, Chacon, and all these Davila, all these characters, all these boxing characters are still friends of mine today, except for Bobby Chacon, who passed away, unfortunately. But it was a place where I made lifetime friends. And the Olympic was only 4 miles from East LA, where I was living at that time. So it was really, I mean, we could even take streets or jump on the 10 and get off there. It was, 4 miles is not very far. And it was just somehow the boxing seemed more real there than any place else I've ever been to in my life. As Steve was saying, the Olympic was more of the Mexican American boxers. That's what Eileen catered to. And George Parnassus, who was her matchmaker in the 50s, and he left in 67, Steve, about, I think. He left. He got recruited by Jack Kent Cooke as he was building the Forum in Inglewood. And George Parnassus went over there and he romanced all the Mexicanos to go to the Forum, because he brought in Jose Mantequilla Nápoles, Ruben Olivares. He started bringing all these great fighters. they started, packing the Olympic, and George became, a bitter enemy of Eileen. She felt betrayed by him, and but getting back to the Olympic, it was such a fabulous place. And let's tell you how hardcore I am. I started reading about this boxer in El Esto magazine. It's like from Mexico City. It's kind of brownish sepia tone magazine, a daily magazine newspaper. And I was reading about this young kid named Salvador Sanchez coming up. Oh, he's good. He's getting good. Oh my God, he's undefeated. Oh, good. So they put him at the Olympic Auditorium on a Saturday night. And I didn't want to go there by myself. It's not the most the safest area at that time. But none of my friends wanted to go with me, so there I went by myself, and I had a blast because I ended up seeing a lot of friends there. But Salvador Sanchez fought to a draw with a kid named Juan Escobar from Tijuana. Slam bam fight, man. Look it up someday. And so that's how hardcore I was. I love the place, the smell, the atmosphere, and as Steve said, the characters there. You had different groups. You had the celebrities there in the front. You had the mobsters there, and they had their own section on like the fourth row. And I always love to tell the story. After every fight, 2 rows would stand up. The 4th and 5th row would stand up, and they'd turn around and face each other, and you'd see money passing hands. They're paying off the bets after each fight. And it was just a fabulous place. Eileen, I didn't know Eileen. I used to see her there every Thursday, and I never approached her because she was kind of intimidating. She was busy. She was running the show, and she, you could tell, nobody messed with her. She even threw out the famed mobster. Give me his name, Steve.
Mickey Cohen.
Mickey Cohen was trying to take over the wrestling operations over there. And Don Chargan witnessed this, and he told us the story. She grabbed him by the arm and just walked him out of the Olympics. Says, "You're out of here." I mean, she feared no one. And what a place that was. Also, I want to ask Steve a question about in this movie, which I'm honored to be in, honored to help out as much as I could to Steve DeBro, because I wanted this movie done somehow. And it thank God it got done after a few years. And me and Steve are kind of big music guys. I managed some bands in East LA, and Steve worked for Atlantic Records in New York under the great Ahmed Erdogan. And so me and Steve got together a few times, and he'd come over to the house, and I'd play some records. But Steve, tell us about everybody talks about the movie, but let's cover the soundtrack a little bit.
Well, it was really, I mean, it's a very music-driven movie, as Guapo, as you obviously experienced watching it, and to me it fit. I wanted the music to be reflective of Los Angeles, number one. So that was important to me, to have music that was connected to the city or the building in some way. So all the music is that. And I also felt like with the action of the place and the strengths of the editor that I brought in, who is such a concussive, propulsive editor who cuts so well to music, that music was going to help me move the action along in this movie and keep the energy up, because I felt like what I wanted an audience to experience was sort of like slightly like the disorientation of going into the Olympic and feeling the intensity of the place and being propulsed by the music, and also in the interim pieces like things like Taste of Honey, that was originally, not even originally, was covered by the Tijuana Brass and made famous by the Tijuana Brass, that our group Jungle Fire covered, as well as so many other great, we used Charles Wright and the Watts 103rd Street Band, Cannibal and the Headhunters, War, the Weirdos, the punk band from LA, doing a cover of the band Love, who are another LA band. So I just really, I wanted to kind of make this very cohesive experience. So the music, you know, the music mattered to me a lot, and I know it mattered to you. And you know, I mean, Gene, you know, Guapo, I guess you've met Gene a few times now through through some of your podcasts, but I very much, I'm very appreciative of Gene as a trusted colleague and friend, and someone who really knows what he's talking about, really knows music and really knows boxing and knows the culture. And, you know, I entered in this story very much kind of an interested outsider, in that it wasn't a place that I wasn't an Olympic regular or anything. But I grew up in LA, and the Olympic was always on TV. And so it was part of my childhood. And the more I got to understand the story, the more I realized how important a story it was. And having Gene as someone who could both provide expertise and bounce ideas off of and have long conversations, which we do to this very day, has meant so much to me. And so anyway, I've been very, very grateful and fortunate for that and all the great music. And anyway, it's a long way of saying music mattered, and our connection to music really helped us gel on a couple of different levels.
And I'll tell you, the one thing I got is this as well. Like I was thinking, first of all, I was getting aggravated and mad that I missed it. But the thing is this: you have 4 groups of completely different people, punk rock fans, roller derby fans, wrestling and boxing, who will say that was the greatest place on earth. Just think, what kind of special place do you have to be where 4 completely different types of people will say that's the greatest building ever built?
Well, and let me flip this around on that question. It's like, one of the hardest things I had to do in this movie is to try to make sure that I was covering that for everyone who's in it. And really the only beefs that I've gotten from some people has been, I wanted more punk rock, I wanted more wrestling, I wanted more roller derby. Boxing fans are pretty satisfied because it's more of a boxing. I would say generally speaking, it's more of a boxing movie than anything else. However, we cover roller derby and wrestling. We have so much, you know, I have enough material to do a series on this whole thing, which I'd love to do at some point. But yes, it meant so much to these people that it was hard to make sure that I was telling a tight, compact story that a general audience could watch and not get too caught in the weeds for everything, as well as give people what they wanted, the real super fans.
The building had something for everyone. It had something for everyone. There's no demographic left. Punk rock, boxing, wrestling, and roller derby. What's left?
I don't know. You know, it was part of the challenge of making the movie, one that I took very seriously, one that when people, the small criticisms that I've gotten, I take to heart, because I really tried to get everything in that I could while keeping the movie moving along and not too long, because generally, you know, I wanted a general audience to like the movie too. I didn't want it to make it just for the super fans. I wanted people who knew nothing about the Olympic Auditorium to be able to go, wow, I didn't know. And it really was, what a place. And I see why this guy made this movie. This is really important, and it moved me emotionally. And I think that that's what mattered. What mattered to me most, and is the response that you first had, was like at the end, you were choking back tears, like that. The emotional impact to me was the most important thing. Like, what did we lose in losing this? You know, what have we lost as a culture? I mean, obviously things have changed, and you can't go back in time, but what was there that was so powerful to these people, to the point when, as I said, when I interview them, the way that they talk about the Olympic, when people talk about the Olympic, is like nowhere else. It is like the magical kingdom, like Gene said. It's like going to Disneyland. It was an adult,
It was
sort of dark Disneyland where
yes.
some not always the nicest things happened there. Yet it was incredibly energizing to people. It made them feel alive. And how many places and how many experiences do that in these days, especially when we're numbed out by devices and overload of Twitter and all the stuff that comes at us, to have a place that literally, like, when you're in it, you can't think of something else. What were you going to say, Gene? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no. I just wanted to reflect on a couple experiences that I had at the Olympic Auditorium. I went to see the Johnny Owen against Lupe Pintor WBC Bantamweight Championship fight. There was a sold-out crowd. A lot of people flew in from Wales, and they had all their jerseys on, and they were chanting all night. Sing in that sing song thing they do. You know that, Guapo? You know what? In the soccer game,
they chant.
yes, they were chanting. Oh, and then you had all the Mexican guys, man, partying, and where everybody was drinking that night. And unfortunately, we all know what happened at the end. And I went home that night, and I couldn't sleep because I knew Johnny was gone. He didn't officially die that night, but just to see the fans throw beer on his, as they were carrying him out on the stretcher in the gurney, people were throwing beer and God knows what else in the cups. And I went home, and it really hit me hard. I couldn't sleep that night, and I couldn't watch boxing for a few months after that either, because it just, to see a man, there I go for my own entertainment, and to see a man lose his life, it really, really hit me hard to the core. And then a few years later, you guys, I went to see Alberto Davila, also a WBC Bantamweight Championship fight, against Kiko Bejinas. And Albert was a great workman-like boxer, technical boxer, but not with a lot of power. But he was just sturdy. He was like a Willie Pep, bam, 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 and not known for a powerful punch. And there he is, knocking out Kiko Bejinas in the 12th round and winning the fight. And Kiko did not look good as he went down, and they carried him out of the gurney. And I just happened, I left right away, and there was the ambulance outside, and just by coincidence, they carrying him right by me, and I saw his face. I'll never forget that. He had the look of death, and he died 1 or 2 days afterwards. So again, that was another sleepless night that I had. But it just goes to show you that I had some great times at the Olympic, and then I had some reality checks there. But I shook it off. That's the way boxing is. It's part of the sport. I mean, there's people who die in race car driving, right? In baseball, some guy a few years ago hit a foul ball and unfortunately killed a little girl that was walking in the aisle. I don't know. I remember all the details. I think it was at Dodger Stadium. But I mean, it's just part of life. You go out. I can go out and walk my dog tonight and get hit by a car. And so it's just, you don't know when you don't know. But getting back to that, in the movie, and I don't want to disclose too much.
No spoilers, Gene.
Huh?
No spoilers.
What's that again? I'm sorry.
Don't give it away. Don't give away spoilers.
Oh no, I won't. But do you want? Should we talk about the Pintor story? Is that okay, Steve? The interview we had.
Oh sure, yeah, that's a good
one. Okay. Okay, Pintor, me and Steve, so we're talking, and how to end the movie, and when it's going to end in a certain year around 1980, right, Steve? When it ends.
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely felt like that was a major chapter of the Olympic coming to
When
an end.
Eileen leaves. When Eileen leaves.
Was around 1980, and I interviewed all of these people around the Johnny O and Lupe Pintor fight, and I felt like it was important to interview Lupe Pintor if possible. And Gene said, "Oh, actually, well, he's going to be at Canastota being inducted. I can make it happen if you can get there." Right? That was basically it.
Right.
So I had flown. This was a self-funded doc with everyone. Everyone working for. I managed to pull a great team together. For people working for deferred compensation, people working for nothing, whatever. So we went out there and flew out to New York. I interviewed a historian in New York City, then drove up to interview the destroyer at his place in outside of Buffalo, and then drove to Canastota to connect with Gene and Lupe Pintor. But this was all in this crazy, with two people carrying massive amounts of gear on train stations through the city, through Grand Central, Penn Station, with at rush hour with tons of gear, all sorts of stuff. But anyway, we end up in Canastota. Gene, you can take it from there.
Okay. Well, as you know, John, when a boxer gets inducted into the Hall of Fame, especially at the International up there in Canastota, I mean, they're the star of the weekend. I mean, there's about 5,000 fans there congregated, and they follow. The stars of the weekend are the guys getting inducted. So, over there at the Hall of Fame, they got Lupe going to this breakfast, this luncheon, this dinner, this interview. Okay, then they take him back to the hotel. They tuck him into bed. Next morning, the same routine again. So Steve arrives, and we're trying to just get, and I know Lupe from the old days. In my second book, there's a picture of me and Lupe there at the catacombs at the Olympic Auditorium after his fight with, and also standing with his Julio Hernandez. But so me and Lupe go back, to the 80s, and so, I told him, "Hey, Lupe, I need a favor. A friend of mine's coming to do this interview. He wants to interview you on the Johnny Owen fight in the Olympic Auditorium and blah, blah." He's sure. Well, it's a deal. But they had kept Lupus, just running around like a chicken with his head cut off, just crazy, not one free minute. And so we went to this. They had on Saturday night in Syracuse. They had at a Steve. I don't think you went to that, did you? You didn't go to the big dinner.
No, because we had to prepare for Lupe.
We had to get ready. Yes, I gave Steve the key to my room. I could go get set up right there. He's got all the lights in there, and so we get back from Syracuse. They bring us back in the bus because Lupe. And then there's I won't mention any name, but there's people there directing. Okay, go ahead, go to your room, Lupe. Go to your room. So I told Steve, this is going to be like a 007 type operation. As soon as Lupe gets off the bus, the big charter bus, we're going to pretend like we're going in the hotel, but you got to be, I'm gonna call you when we're outside. I'm gonna take him around to the side of the bus. I'm gonna just distract everybody because all the guys there, all the employees at the Boxing Hall of Fame, John, they want to see him go back in his room. They don't want him carousing out. So I got him to the side of the bus. I waved to Steve, or I called him, and Steve comes driving in his car. And that year, Lupe had a broken foot. He was playing soccer.
You kind of buried the lead. Lupe this whole time is in a cast, in a full leg cast, in a wheelchair.
Broken leg.
So to complicate matters, Lupe's immobile.
Right.
So we're trying to make this happen while Lupe is immobile, and do it in Gene's tiny hotel room. So we have a crew. We're on Gene's bed, a single like funky hotel that's now been torn down, Graziano's, and we're in there. We finally get him in. Gene translates into Spanish, and we get it done. But it was just a ridiculous, hilarious. I'm so glad we got it, because it gives weight. And,
yes.
And I mean, it really is an impactful moment in the movie, and I'm so glad we did it. But these were the lengths that we would go to make this movie happen. So that's but one of, we did 50 interviews, 50 full-length interviews for this movie. So, and many of whom the people are in for but a second, or some not at all. But it was, all of that gave the richness to the film.
Guapo, let me ask you before we end. What was your favorite part of the movie? What section?
The Mondo Ramos. I was not, being from the East Coast, I was not really familiar with the Mondo Ramos situation, and just even the way you said, like he lied about his age, and he was shot by 22. He was shot. It just struck a real chord. Of course, I Google him, see like what happened. If you just look at the record on BoxRec, he had a very mediocre career, but we know that's not the case.
Yes, a lot of the fights were
absolutely not the case. He was a talent. If you take his prime, he was as good as anybody.
Right.
He was really, really short, and the building made it happen. It wouldn't have happened if he was fighting all over the country. And he put it this way. We don't know who built the Grand Olympic, but the Grand Olympic built Mondo Ramos. He wouldn't have done it if he was fighting all over the place. He benefited the most from that building. And that was I like that. And believe it or not, I was drawn into the punk rock part just by the fact that, all right, they got new life for this place. And they had the people coming in, and they seemed to take a real, an attachment to the building. And they had a whole different agenda. And it's like, this is crazy. Like this building has so much history and meant so much, like we talked about, so many different groups of people. But if I had to get, and I like the Carlos Palomino part, way he just glows when he mentions A Star Is Born, and it was pretty much through the building.
Yeah.
So I like the interview with Roddy Piper. You have him in there.
Yes. Yeah, I love that.
A gigantic star, and people forget that's where he basically came from. So you just think of the people without that building wouldn't have been propelled to get where they got. I mean, you can name so many people that needed that place. That building needed nobody. They needed that building. It was
an interesting. It was a platform, and it really was. As someone who my whole side of my career before making this movie was making stars look good. Like my job was in the music business as someone whose job it was to put people on that platform and make sure that everything was good around them. I really appreciate what it takes, both sides. I appreciate the sacrifices and what the talent does for that, but I also recognize that all of the cogs in the machine and the star makers can be and the situation is as important as anything else. There's so many talented people that never get that platform, and because of that, their careers never really take off. What the Olympic had, in particularly in the Eileen Eaton era, was someone whose eye was on the prize, which was quality, please your audience, don't sell them short, give them their money's worth, and don't disrespect them. And I think that a lot of promoters could learn from that today. And that was the continuity of the punk rock thing. Gary Tovar, who took over, look at what Golden Voice became. Golden Voice is Coachella. that started out of doing punk rock shows at the Olympic Auditorium. Gary, he lost money on those shows. He would put more money into them because he wanted to make sure that the bills were packed, that he was building something the audience would come and they'd get their money's worth. And I think a lot of promoters today, or just a lot of sports events today, it's like, okay, I went to a Lakers game. I spent the average family of 4 to buy tickets is like, that's $300 or more to see it. Like, you go to the Olympic, you go to the Olympic, and it was like for a family of 4, usually it was probably a couple of guys, but a couple of guys get in there. What, Gene? What were the tickets?
$6.50, $10.
Yeah. So you could go in, and even with inflation, that's still a cheap ticket, and $1 for a beer, so you'd have an evening of entertainment.
Oh yes.
And they made sure that you were entertained.
Yes.
So I appreciate that. So yeah, the Olympic was a unique place. It was really a unique place.
But I can sincerely tell you that up until now, my favorite documentary was Once in a Lifetime. It's about the New York Cosmos, who my uncle worked for, so I knew most of the guys. I think you just placed it.
Oh, thank you.
And I cannot tell you how much I truly enjoyed it. Like I could have watched it for 12 more hours. If there was 12 more hours, you say,
wow.
I want more. Like,
Guapo, don't you want that?
We're gonna find ways. I promise we will find a way, whether that's like creating a Patreon, doing whatever it is, like we're gonna find ways to release the additional content over time, because it's just too, it still like moves me. Like I saw the Carlos Palomino interview that you did. But his whole interview is so moving and powerful. There's guys like Frankie Duarte who gets one line in the movie, and really his interview is so beautiful. And, there's so many people. It's just like, when you're editing for story, you have to make brutal, they say kill your darlings. You have to make brutal choices when you have to like get to a story that sticks, because we did 30 versions of the edit before we got to a version that was what you see now, and that was as thorough and moving and emotional and all that stuff. And the brutal part of that is so many moving moments were things that I couldn't include. And so I'm really happy it worked and that it moved you. And I'm really hopeful.
I was in a bad mood for 2 days because I missed it. And I'm not exaggerating. I was pissed off because I don't believe I missed this. And there will never be anything like it. And it had all my interest. I would have went to every event. I'm telling you, I thought this in my head. If I would have lived in that era, had a job that had enough money for me to live, eat, and go to every event there, that would be a wonderful life.
That would be me.
I really missed it.
Well, you get to be Gene, and our friend Joe Adame worked across at the tire store or something, right?
Yeah.
And so he did. He was just right there, and he would go to the fights, and Gene went to. It was a regular place for a lot of people, and I think this was, as Carlos said, a lot of people cried when they shut it down. It was a very emotional thing that place couldn't go on. I don't think too many people say that about, like, if for some reason someone replaced Staples Center with a new basketball venue, people wouldn't go, I cried that Staples. They would be like, oh, well, it was a good building. I saw a lot of good games there. I'm not going to feel so emotional about it.
People were happy when they opened the Forum and got rid of the Forum to go to the Staples Center. So no love was lost. Like nobody cared like they do there.
Look at that.
Yeah, wow. That's just something. Yeah,
John, these were on all the telephone poles and the day, or restaurants, they put them on their windows. And, I used to go hunting for these things, and because I see them as a work of art, that I call them the floating head.
Work of art. Yes.
The floating head posters, they're gorgeous. I framed this one because it's signed by both Carlos and Mando Muniz. And, how much were the tickets back then? The ringside was $25. So there I was, and
incredible.
You know what? I can't wait for the day that the movie, the 18th and Grand, comes out on a DVD with additional bonus features. That's the day when I'm the type of guy. I'm a historian, author type guy that loves physical product, vinyl records. So I want that movie in my
movie, Gene.
DVD.
I promise you, I've gone this far. I have to find some way to make money.
Get us across that finish line, Steve-O.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah. I mean, it was a long journey, Guapo. It was a long one, and I'm really, it was unlike anything I've ever tried to do before. But I wanted to get it right. I was like, if I only ever make one movie, I want it to be a movie that people remember, and I want it to be good. I don't want to go out there and like make something that stinks, or that like people go, well, yeah, you spent all that time on it. It's okay.
I wouldn't want the ghost of Mondo Ramos angry at me if you didn't do it right.
No,
exactly.
And I mean, on a more serious level, honestly, it's like I felt like I owed it to all these people who shared their lives and their stories with me, especially those who passed away, like that I would do them right. It was like Dick Enberg. I mean, how lucky in a million years did I ever think that I could sit down and spend an hour interviewing
Julio Cesar Chavez? You had
yeah.
Chavez. I mean, here's the thing. Even if somebody never heard of the building in their life and they watch that, they'll miss it too.
Yeah.
It was that good. You really painted the perfect picture. Let me do this. We kept you way too long. I have 40 million more questions, but I can't thank you enough. Mike said it's flowing well. He doesn't want to ruin it, but I want to bring Mike in. So if he's listening, Mike, come in. Where is he?
Of course I'm listening.
There he is. I don't care what you're asking a question, because I want a film guy to ask him a question now, because we talked about the other stuff, but please ask him a question.
Okay. Well, I'm very interested to see this, and just having seen excerpts from it and reading up on it. One question I had was from idea to completion. How long did all of this take to come about?
Well, from idea, about 14 years.
That sounds right.
From when I started shooting the documentary, the first interviews in 2014.
Okay.
So it had gone through various iterations before that, and then I was like, what I came to was that I needed to do it myself. Like, because I had talked to people like, this is a great story. I want to approach X documentarian to do it. And then one guy was like, Morgan Neville, who's did 20 Feet from Stardom, great documentarian, was like, yeah, I really like it, but I've got other things and I'm gonna pass. And then there was another documentarian we took it to, and he was like, yeah, if you raise $1.2 million, I'll make the documentary. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't have that money. Why would I, if I did, no. So, I can't remember, there was someone who died, and I was just like, if I don't do this now, and if I don't believe in this enough now to invest my time into it, because at that point it was mostly time, because I had a shooter who was willing to shoot this for me, who believed in it. So he went and he did it, basically, hey, pay me if we ever make money on this thing. So that's how we started in the first, I think it was Gene LaBelle, who was the first person that we interviewed. And Gene has such talk about a movie history that he has. He was in Raging Bull. He was in, he was in the original Superman TV series. He lost his virginity to Lois Lane. That's a story that I've never told anyone. Gene, are you listening? Don't choke me out. Anyway, but Gene has this incredible film history, and Gene's mom was Eileen, and Gene getting his buy-in and his belief in it really was this sort of door opener to other people, and just sort of, when he said, told Don Chargan, yeah, talk to Steve. When he said, Roddy Piper, please do this interview for me, it's Gene. Lots of doors opened for me because of Gene. And then as I gradually, it's like the one thing that I would advise to any filmmaker is work yourself up. Start with people who will say yes, and then gradually learn what you're doing, and learn your subject matter. And then over time, you'll get bigger people. And when you get bigger people, that assures people that you know what you're talking about, which allows you to get bigger people. So, Julio Cesar Chavez, for example, that was a tricky one, and he was a hard guy to reach. And we weren't even sure he was going to show up on the day that he agreed to, but he did. We did it exactly the way his people said to do it, and he showed up and did it, and he was great. But it was, we were able to say at that point, hey, we've already interviewed Lupe Pintor. We've interviewed like all these great Mexican champions. We've interviewed, a lot of legitimate people that made him feel safe that this wasn't going to be a waste of his time. And so
that's awesome. That's fantastic.
I truly can't say enough about it, though. I mean, I can't wait. You got to keep us posted as to what does happen next with it, because like realistically, how close are we to getting a major release?
Well, it's Hollywood, so we could be super close or we could be further away. We have a lot of really good interest and a lot of love for the movie from really quote unquote important people. And how that's going to play itself out, I don't know, but I do expect that it's going to have a good release and that it's going to come out this year and that it's going to find a nice home somewhere. We're just in the midst of that process. Sort of, we've done, basically at this where we are at this point is we've done a couple of film festivals. We have some other festivals that look like they're coming as the year goes on. We have some screenings that we're planning in LA. We have some potential East Coast, potential Mexico things going on. And we have some other distributors looking at the film. And so I can't be more specific than that, other than it's real people who are behind us, who are, excited about the movie, and how that's going to play out. If Gene and I have talked, it was like, until there's a signed deal, I don't believe in anything, because I know I've been on both sides of the business, and so I know that there's a degree of things I can control and things I can't. So I'm just trying to do everything I can in my control to put it in the best possible position and to do it right in the same way I did the movie right. I want to get the release right. I don't want to just say, oh, it's out there and it's, you can for $10 you can get it on Amazon. I really hope to have a streaming deal with someone where they're not having to pay extra to or on Apple TV or whatever. Like, I want to get it on somewhere where people can really see the movie, and I'll know that pretty soon where that's going to be. But we'll make a DVD. We have T-shirts available for sale on our website, 18thandgrand.com, that you can buy now if you're interested. And there will be physical product and more things to come.
And all those links will be in the descriptions below, everybody, so you can check them out.
Great.
And what you said East Coast things, like, would you do something similar to what you did on the West Coast as far as the people came to watch the movie, that kind of thing on the East Coast?
That's the hope. Yeah, we'll do. One on the screen. We want to have. Now the movie theaters are opening. We certainly want to do that. There's a couple of film festivals that are interested in seeing the film that are on the East Coast, and so yeah, you know, I want to be in New York. I lived in New York for 10 years, man.
And I'm
for 10 years.
50 miles away, so you have to let me know when that happens. And let me do know, because I can get you some key people to definitely, I can make your job easy as far as not having to reach out, because I have the right East Coast people that will come.
I appreciate that. That's where would I be without friends? I
learned that already.
I see that with you next to me, a good friend, and I really, all the way along this film, it's like my whole part of my job is I've always felt is to be the storyteller, and part of that is to be the voice of the Olympic in the world, and to try to tell this story and be the person who is the salesman of this movie, because who else is going to do it but me? And having friends and making friends along the way matters, because people don't want to do stuff for people who are assholes. Sorry, people who are jerks. That's perfect. No one cares.
That's
right.
Yeah.
But people will extend themselves if they're excited about something and you're kind to them, rather than being a jerk, of which we know some of those people, and they seem to shoot themselves in the foot all the time.
Regularly.
I'd love to make some money on this movie, or at least get my money back. But my main thing is to have as many people see this as possible, and to spread the story out as far and wide as I can. And I think that it's a story that, even though the Olympic was unique, there was the Garden in New York, of course, that was the bigger version of the Olympic, the even bigger version of the Olympic. But there was, there were venues. There's the Dallas Sportatorium. There was Joe Louis Arena. There was, Chicago. Every city had a regional venue. And I think that this movie will resonate with people who had their own venue that they cared about, that they lost along the way. And also, hopefully, younger people who want to remember and who've heard the legend of these places.
I don't think I know exactly what you mean, but I don't think those other places quite stack up. They just have too many other things going on, and nothing really called it home. Like, things that went to Madison Square Garden went everywhere. The Disney on Ice went to every arena in the country. They didn't have Mondo Ramos for 4 years straight. You know what I mean? It's different. I
do, and it's funny. Steve Farhood said the same from Showtime. Said the very same thing that you said. He said, I grew up, reading about the Olympic Auditorium on the East Coast. And he's like, and I never got a chance to go. And it's one of the great things that I like. He literally said the same thing. It's like, it's one place in the world I wish I had a chance to go to. Like I read about it, I think about it. I saw your movie, and I'm just like, that is a place that I really like. I have big regrets in my life that I didn't get a chance to go there.
And it's hard to argue with that. Thank you so much for coming on. Keep us posted. It was truly my pleasure, and 100% honestly that you made something special, because it really resonated. Everything. The message is exactly what you wanted to put out there, because I'm telling you, I've been less mad about things in real life than I was about the movie, just because I don't believe I missed this. And it's just you did an incredible job, and I really can't wait to see good things coming. And I don't think you're going to have any trouble, because there's no way anybody could watch that and say, nah, I can't imagine any scenario where that happens. I just can't.
Thank you from your lips. Appreciate that. And thank you guys for having us. And thank you, Gene, for being such a good friend and great amigo and great source of knowledge. And I appreciate you all.
No, thank you so much. Thank you again. Keep us posted, and we're really excited to hear what happens next. And I look forward to an East Coast screening, because I'll be there.
Great. We'll share a drink.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Have a great night.
And that's our show, everybody. Thanks for listening or watching, wherever you're checking it out. This show is brought to you by our sponsor, Manscaped. Go check them out. They are saving our balls, and they can save yours too, or somebody you care about. It's a pretty awesome device, so go check out what they got, the Lawnmower 3.0, the Weed Whacker, and more. It's a great gift for Father's Day, birthdays, weddings, anything. So yeah, head over there and use promo code SNOBS, SNOBS, and you'll get 20% off and free shipping. Also, we'd like to thank our super fan patrons. They are all Scene Snob family to us. They support us every month, and you can be one too. So head over to the Patreon channel, the Scene Snobs, and it's $5 a month, and you can join in with helping support us and get the free perks too. Also, you can follow us on social media. We are on everything at the Scene Snobs, so Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We are on Facebook, the Scene Snobs. Everywhere. We have fun stuff always going on, always have contests and stuff, so go follow us, check us out. You can go to our link tree by going to thescenesnobs.com. There's our link tree, there's our Patreon, there is all of our shows and the links for all of that. So thanks again for checking it out. Just head over to thescenesnobs.com where everything is, and we will talk to you soon.